We do want to bring in Alina Polyakova now. She is an expert on European security and joins us now from Washington. Grateful to have you here as we await this summit. I do want to ask you, will Trump's latest comments put Ukraine and European allies' minds at ease, or will it further concern them? I am specifically talking about the fact that he does say that there will be consequences for Russia if Putin doesn't agree to end the war, and that those consequences will be punishing. And he also said, I'm not here to negotiate for Ukraine. What do you make of it?
Well, certainly, I think in recent days, as President Trump had some of his phone calls with European leaders, there was a bit of a sigh of relief from some European capitals as well as from Ukrainians, because President Trump understood the importance of having Ukraine at the table as well as having European input. And you saw a change in his rhetoric. He went from saying we're going to get something done to now saying there's going to be consequences. I'm going to be in a listening mode. But I think the bottom line is there's just a lot of mixed messages coming from the president, the White House still. And we know that President Trump and President Putin will be meeting initially just one-on-one with their respective translators. And that's always a dangerous, I think, scenario for any U.S. president, because President Putin is very, very good at manipulating the conversation. And I'm concerned that, President Trump may be going in just wanting to listen and try to see if Putin is serious about coming to at least a ceasefire agreement, which should be the minimal expectation for this. But once they get in the room, who knows what President Trump will think afterwards.
You make a good point there that the minimum would be a ceasefire, right? And as we just pointed out, in the coming hours, Ukraine doesn't know what's coming at it. They may be trying to follow the summit. The point is they need to follow the missiles and drones that are incoming. Having said that, one could argue that if there is a ceasefire, that's when the hard part begins. How complicated is the battlefield picture right now?
Well, I think this is the really undercovered element of what's really happening on the front line now. In recent days, Russia has made a significant breakthrough through one of Ukraine's fortified frontline positions. And now the Russian military is making more gains than it has over the last 6 months in the conflict. So the battlefield is, at the end of the day, going to define the outcome of the war. And with all the focus on the meeting between Trump and Putin, I think that's what's being lost. It's very, very clear to me that the Russians right now are trying to do everything they can to intensify the conflict, not to dial it down, to see exactly how they can maximize those battlefield gains, because they believe they'll put them in a much more positive negotiating position for themselves. And I think that is what we should be focusing on, is what the Russians are actually doing in Ukraine, still killing civilians, innocent children, etc., all the horrific things we've seen, versus what President Putin is saying.
Yeah, and besides the propaganda win for President Putin from even just having this summit, it gives him time, right? More time to continue that military assault, as you speak of. What do you make of President Trump's engagement on economic issues? Nick was just talking about it. I mean, it is not a point lost on me that Russia has been, really at the sharp end of European sanctions. Europe has gone to great lengths to distance itself economically from Russia. And here you have the U.S. seriously trying to engage with Russia economically.
Well, unfortunately, I think for us in the United States, for Europeans, and certainly for Ukrainians, the Russian economy has shown itself to be remarkably resilient to the sanctions that the U.S. and allies have imposed on it so far. And that's really mainly because they're getting incredible support from their partners in Beijing, even with India buying a massive amount of Russian oil and gas as well, from North Korea, from Iran. We know the countries that are helping Russia in its war effort. And Russia has shown an ability to be able to adapt to sanctions. That being said, we really haven't imposed the harshest economic penalties, which are these secondary sanctions that President Trump is now threatening to impose. Those would hurt a lot. Those could significantly curtail Russia's war machine. They could curtail Russia's ability to feed its war economy. But I think we have to wait and see if the president is going to come out of this meeting saying, Putin's not ready for a deal, and we're going to impose and enforce those sanctions. And enforcement is going to be a huge challenge for the United States if we go at this alone without European partners and allies. But that's what I'll be watching for the next couple of hours. Is the president going to come out saying that was a great meeting? I think we have a deal, but we don't hear anything from the Russian side. Or are we actually going to hear Putin say, I've agreed to a ceasefire and I will implement it? Because the Russians have agreed to lots of things, but then they don't actually follow through or really do anything.
Yeah, such a good point. A durable ceasefire, let alone a peace agreement, is something that has not been enforced for more than a decade in that territory. Alina Polyakova, grateful to you.